and welcome back to the channel. In this video I'll be sharing with you a requested video of how to cut this stylish princess darts blouse with an overlap on top. So if this is something you like, please don't forget to hit on the subscribe button, give this video a thumbs up. So let's dive right into today's video. So now to start, here is my pattern paper, and I've gone ahead to mark out my basic measurements, which includes my shoulder to bust, shoulder to under bust, shoulder to waistline, and here is my blouse length. So for your blouse length, you want to take at least 7.5 inches to 8 inches for this blouse from your waistline. Go ahead to mark your shoulder divided by 2 and add half, because this dress has a sleeve, and I'll come down by 1 inch for my shoulder slope. So here I'll go ahead and mark my neckline, which is 3 inches, and I'll connect from the shoulder slope all the way up. So after that, I'll place my tape and I'll find my chest line. To get that is your bust circumference divided by 6 plus 1.5 inches. So I placed my ruler and I drew out a straight line at that point. Now mark what you have on the shoulder back on the chest line, which is your shoulder divided by 2 plus half inch. Connect from the chest line to the upper part of your shoulder. So now I'll place my tape, fold it into 2 and mark. From this point, I'll go ahead and come in by half inch. Go ahead to mark my bust circumference divided by 4 on that line. I'll connect from the half inch to the upper part of my shoulder and to the lower part of the armhole. So this is what I have, and the next step is to go ahead and mark my nipple to nipple divided by 2. So my nipple to nipple is 7 inches divided by 2. I have 3.5. After marking that, I went ahead to draw a straight line starting from the under bust to the blouse length. Next, you want to take your dart intake. I'll be marking 1 inch on both sides, but if you have a fuller bust, it's best to mark 1 inch on the first side, and on the side going to the armhole, go ahead to mark 2 inches. So for someone that has a bigger bust, you'll be using a dart intake of 3 inches. That is 1 inch coming to the center and 2 inches going to the side, because the bust is fuller by the side. But for me, I'm just going to go ahead to use 1 inch on both sides. My bust is 33, so I'll just go ahead and mark 1 inch on both sides of my pattern. After that, I'll use my marker and draw out a straight line. Next, I'll extend my nipple to nipple divided by 2 up, and I will connect. So I'll connect from the bust to the under bust, and then connect from the bust to the under bust at the other side. Now I'll go in with my marker and I will outline this. After I'm done doing this, the next step you want to take is to go ahead to mark out your neckline, which I will be marking 3 by 3 inches for this neckline. If you want yours to be a bit high, you can just go ahead and use 3 inches by 2.5. Now I'll go ahead to connect from the armhole all the way to the bust point this way, because this is a princess dart pattern. And after I'm done marking that, I'll go ahead to mark half inch on both sides of this pattern this way. After I'm done marking it, you want to go ahead and connect this all the way to the initial dart line, and I'll go in with my marker to outline. For that half inch on both sides that you marked, you'll be replacing it at the lower part of the armhole. Go ahead to tilt your tape up and then blend it back into your armhole. Now I'll just outline the rest of my pattern. After this, you want to insert your body measurements. Mark your bust circumference divided by 4. Measure that intake of 1 inch at the armhole. Replace and add your sewing allowance. Mark your under bust circumference divided by 4. Measure the 2 inches dart intake and replace. At the waistline, repeat the same process. And here you are going to mark your hip circumference divided by 4. Also replace the 2 inches dart intake and add your sewing allowance. Next, I'll go ahead and I will reconnect all these marks. So after that, I'll go in with my marker. So you want to go ahead and mark your bust dart. To get your bust dart is the difference between your shoulder to waist in front and shoulder to waist at the back. My shoulder to waist in front is 17 inches. My shoulder to waist at the back is 15.5. 17 minus 15.5, you have 1.5 inches, which is my bust dart. So I'll go ahead and remark all these measurements on the other side of my pattern. So after this, I'll just go ahead and cut out the unnecessary part that I don't need, and we'll continue the pattern drafting. So after cutting, this is what I have for this pattern, and next we are going to work on the lower part. I placed my tape from my waistline and measured 5 inches. From that 5 inches point, I came up by 1.5 inches, and I'll go ahead to connect this all the way down. Now I'll blend in my darts this way and connect to the other side. After I'm done connecting, we're going to work on this side. So here I'll be marking 2 inches and I'll come down by 4 inches to connect. So that side we're going to replace it with a half jacket going towards the side, and I'll go in with my marker, outline this, and I'll be cutting this out. While I was filming, my phone stopped recording and I didn't realize that. So this is my pattern after I'm done cutting out. Now if you notice, we placed another pattern paper underneath. We're trying to draft out the half jackets or overlap we have on the dress. So now I'll go ahead and pin this together, and I'm going to place it as if I have joined my pattern together. Draw out the neckline and the armhole area of this part of the dress. Now I'm going to get the side pattern of the other part, and I'm going to place it and trace out the lower part, or use it as a guide to mark this side for the overlap on the dress. So after tracing out, I'll mark from that point and connect to the other side. So I'll just go ahead and trace out this other side and pin it back. So now from here, I'll go up a bit and connect to this point. I'll also connect from that point, take this up, and you notice that the overlap is pointy at this edge and almost at the end of the other side of the dress. So, and if you also notice, the overlap extended to the side. So I'll just try and draw out the shape I have there and connect it about ½ inch after my under bust. After connecting it, I'll go over to the upper part. So here I'll be measuring about 2.5 inches or so, and I'll just create like a curve and I'll extend it all the way to the lower part. So here I'll be using 2 inches as I'm going inwards. So you can go ahead to use this or what you feel is okay. So I created like a curve which will go underneath the under bust, and from there I'll now connect it to that ½ inch on top of the under bust. I'll go ahead and remove my pattern, and this is what we have. Now I'll go ahead and outline. So while cutting out, if it's not exactly what you want, go ahead and readjust it. So this is this side of the dress and this is what I have, and I'll go in and cut it out. So after cutting the overlap, this is what I have. You want to go ahead and place it on the upper part of this overlap. You can go ahead and add extra 2 or 3 inches when you're cutting out, just in case if what you have does not fit. But if you have an excess, you can also trim it out later. This is just to avoid after cutting it and it will not match up with your shoulder. So next, this is the back pattern of my dress, and what I'm going to do now is to go ahead to mark it out, and I've gone ahead to mark out all my basic measurements just like we did for the front. So here is my shoulder to bust, shoulder to waist, and I also added the same 7.5 inches or 8 inches. So now I am going to go ahead to mark my dart, which is my nipple to nipple divided by 2, and I marked just the same way we did for the front. So for the darts going to the lower part after the waistline, it is 4 inches at the lower part. So I'll be marking ½ inch on both sides and I'll be connecting my dart. So I was supposed to come down 1 inch at my bust point, which I forgot. So I came down by 1 inch at that point. I'll go ahead to connect, and I'll also go ahead to connect it all the way to the lower part of my dart extension. So this is what I have after I was done cutting this, and I'll go ahead to use my marker to outline. I'll mark my bust circumference divided by 4 and add my sewing allowance. Mark my waist circumference divided by 4. Measure the dart intake, replace and mark my sewing allowance. Here I'm going to mark the hip circumference divided by 4 and add my sewing allowance. After this, I'll just go ahead and I will connect my pattern. So sorry, my pencil mark is a bit faint. I did not realize this when I was cutting this out. So after marking this, I'll just go ahead and I will go up by 1.5 inches just like we did for the front pattern, and I'll go ahead to connect. So I'll just go ahead and use my marker to outline this to make it more visible for you to see. So after now, I'll go ahead to mark my zipper bulge. I went in by ½ inch from the waistline. I'll be extending this all the way up and I'll take it down. Now I'll just go ahead and use my scissors to cut this out, and I'll also cut out the rest of the pattern. So at this point, if you haven't yet subscribed, please don't forget to hit on the subscribe button. Give this video a thumbs up. After cutting out the back pattern, this is what I have. So to cut out the collar, I'll place the neckline this way and I'll go ahead to trace this out. After tracing this out, I'll go ahead to use the other side of the pattern paper, flip it this way, merge the neckline, place it back together and draw out the neckline. So from here, you will now decide the measurement you want to use for your collar. So I'll just go ahead and just use 2 inches just to explain this for you. But for what we have on the thumbnail, it should be around 4 to 5 inches. So you're just going to attach this to the upper part of your dress. So with this, we have come to the end of today's tutorial. Please don't forget to hit on the subscribe button, give this video a thumbs up, and also see you in our next video. Thanks.